Hi, my name is Rebecca Powers with SLCT, and here is what's happening in Sterling and Lancaster. The Sterling and Lancaster annual town meetings will be held on Monday, May 1st. For more information on times and warrant articles, visit your town clerk's website. There will be a well adult clinic on May 2nd from 8 to 10 a.m. at the Lancaster Community Center. Stop in for blood testing and screenings. For more information, call 978-772-3335. The Sterling Garden Club will be holding their annual plant sale on May 20th from 9 to 11 a.m. on the Sterling Town Common. Come to find perennials, annuals, herbs, shrubs, and trees.
I'm Lex Thomas, editor of Sterling Meeting House News. It is the middle of April and we've got annual town meeting coming up in just a couple of weeks, and I'm very pleased to have as my guests this morning a couple of people who are, of course, so very, very busy with setting up the annual town meeting and the warrant articles, especially dealing with the finance and the budget. I've got John Kilcoyne, who is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and Joe Sobe, who is the chairman of FinCom, of Finance Committee. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, tell me how the process has gone this year. How is the budget looking?
Well, from our perspective, we're very pleased on the Board of Selectmen because we've had, I know from Joe's perspective, I think they've been right on schedule with interviewing despite storms and some, I think, one rescheduling, going over the budget process with all the department heads and people involved. The moderators involved with the whole process right now. We've already had a couple of joint meetings with the FinCom, and have been, because of their input and recommendations, have been able to take a position on virtually all of the articles on the warrant. We've deferred a few of them to a town meeting because we really couldn't agree with the majority on a couple of those articles, which I'm sure we'll get into later. I'll defer to Joe on the Finance Committee part of the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah, we started off sometime around September in the process, September-October timeframe, and indicated to the department heads, our goal was to keep the budget increases to 2%, and we met with all the department heads. They did a great job. I mean, from an operating budget perspective, we really run a very lean and mean operating side of the town. The operating budget is actually came in at 1.9%, so we met our goal there. One of our challenges right through the process is how we deal with the capital articles and the capital expenditures. I mean, we had over $1 million worth of requests, and trying to fund those through our strategy of pay as we go was a challenge. And what we decided at the end of the day was to take the capital articles, which is over $1 million, and try to figure out, through raise and appropriate, or from certified free cash, take some money from the capital fund, and then raise and appropriate as well. So we had originally intended to try to do it through certified free cash, and we just couldn't do it that way. So I think the best way we did was take a little bit from take half from free cash, half from capital, and then the balance, almost $300,000, which was the 1835, we were recommending raise and appropriate. I write in my comments on the warrant is that one of our challenges is that we have $3 million of capital expenditures going out to 2022, which we need to recognize, and I want the voters to know that those are the challenges we're gonna be dealing with in the next future years. And but those are the ones we know of. If anything else comes up, then we have to add to that.
Right.
So.
And of course, the important thing is that although these are going out to 22, it's what we do from year to year that really builds us. So we can't just simply say, okay, then I'll deal with it then. We need to really start thinking about that now. Now, just one point of clarification, this wonderful term free cash.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay. Once it's money from the prior year that was not spent. So the state gives us, they look at all of the income, the revenue and expenses, and they come up with a number. And this year, so we started off with if you want, free cash, money coming back to us, $984,000. That's where we started with. So we're gonna now spend that money in this fiscal year. So it's money from prior years that wasn't spent, that from last year, that comes back to us, it wasn't spent, and now we'll use it in this fiscal year.
Right.
I think just one more point on that. I think a lot of that is the town departments and FinCom anticipating a little bit less revenue from the state each year. We try to do a conservative budget. We've done this in FinCom for years and still do, which is good. And sometimes the expenses, as Joe said, don't hit, aren't as high as we think they're going to be. And it's really just a revenue in excess of expenditures thing, and we kind of anticipate that. We budget conservatively, and we're lucky to have this. Won't be $984,000 every year by any means. We don't know what the state's going to give us. We never do until the end anyway. But
Sure.
but we try to anticipate a low number, and then hopefully we'll be surprised with a little bit higher number. But
Very good. I know there's so much work that goes into this for our town residents and the voters. They tend to focus on the date of that annual town meeting, which of course is May 1st this year. But as you say, Joe, for you, you've been slogging away at this since the fall. I know there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into this, and effort and thought, which is also why we want our voters to know about these issues. I will be welcoming you gentlemen back again for a more in-depth interview. We are going to do a live program next week that is going to really look at the warrant issues in detail and talk more about that, so that everybody knows the issues that are going to be coming up and why it is so important to come out to annual town meeting on Monday, May 1st, and to vote and have your voice heard. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your work, and thank you for being here.
thank you, Les. Thank you very much.
The Sterling Neighbor to Neighbor Fund was established to help Sterling residents during difficult economic times. If you are interested in helping the cause or donating, contact Pat Fox at 774-275-1174. The Sterling Recreation Department had to postpone their road race due to inclement weather. The new date for the race is May 6th. Pre-register at sterlingrecruns.racewire.com. For more information, contact the Rec Department at 978-422-3041.
I'm Lex Thomas, editor of Sterling Meeting House News. I'm here today with Ross Perry. He is our new town administrator here in Sterling. And this is really the first time, Ross, that you and I have had an opportunity to sit down and speak.
Yes.
So thank you very much for taking the time. Congratulations on becoming town administrator. Welcome to Sterling. So tell me, how's it been over the past few weeks?
It's been exciting, exhilarating, exhausting, but it's been everything I was expecting it to be. The people here have been really supportive, really easy to work with. Town officials, town residents, it's fun getting to know everybody.
Excellent. Now, I believe that your swearing in was February 14th, as I recall. It was the day after that storm, because we had to postpone it by a day. And of course, you've come in at an extremely busy time of the year, because we are heading into the annual town meeting, and I know that you've been very, very busy with that. There's a couple of issues that I know are really going to be quite hot in this year's warrant, and I'd like to discuss them with you. First of all, the 1835 Town Hall. Now, I understand that there is going to be 4 warrant article items that our voters, our townspeople, will have a chance to have their voices heard on. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's a good question. There's a lot of sensitivity to the 1835 building. I think it's a special icon to Sterling. And now the question is, what needs to be done? The building needs a lot of repair. The roof is actually, rafters are cracking. So there's extensive repair required to do that. If we continue to use the building, there's some handicap access issues where we need to have access to the second floor that have to be addressed. If we're going to have more use of that building, there's a case of how do we increase the septic capacity of that building. So there's a lot of dollar amounts that are coming forward. The selectmen have decided to give the town sort of the full picture. That's the reason for the 4 articles, and to let them basically let the voters pick what they think is most appropriate. The first article for $610,000 will cover essentially everything that's anticipated. the full roof repair, the interior ceiling repair, starting on, well, the septic design and a connection to presumably a new field over by the fire station. It will include a handicap access lift to the second floor.
And of course, all these things have to be in compliance as well with I know all kinds of rules and regulations.
Yes, exactly. Once your repair covers more than 30% of the assessed value, it triggers all these access requirements.
Right.
So that a little bit of work actually triggers more work, and that's what these 4 articles will do. The first one is essentially the full roof repair in the interior, like I mentioned. The second, for $298,000, covers the interior and the roof and makes the second floor usable, but it triggers the handicap access issues and the septic issues, which might have to be done or will have to be done at a future time. The third option is just to fix the roof so it's no longer falling down. That's for about $150,000. And if the town decides that they don't want to invest any money in the building, I think it's fair to ask, what does one do with it?
Sure.
It would be a crime to let it just fall apart and become an eyesore. So the fourth article, the selectmen have asked for money to essentially prepare it to sell it,
Right.
with the hope being that a private investor would take it over and keep the facade, keep the building as it appears, maybe with a different use.
Now, with the third option, the one that basically just looks after the shell and whatnot, does that trigger all of the compliance issues as well?
I believe it does, yes. But it's sort of tippy-toeing into the repair process. Instead of $610,000 or $298,000, it's $150,000. But knowing, yes, it will trigger the other things. It's just a first step to stabilize the shell
Sure.
of the building.
Now, insofar as that fourth option to sell it to a private investor, as a historic building, are there legal ramifications to that?
Yes, it's a good question. The original deed seems to imply that the building will not be privatized. That deed, I think, goes back to 1807 when the land was first transacted. The reason the selectmen are proposing the $15,000 for that fourth option is that if that's what the town wants to do, we will then start the legal process to vet that title. We've seen the 1807 handwritten version. I'm assuming a lot may have changed since then, and it will be an extensive process to figure out
Sure.
where the deed really stands today. I just decided, why spend that legal money if in fact the town says we're going to keep the building and we're going to maintain it and use it.
Sure. And of course, this is an important issue to our voters. Of course, Sterling residents know that this issue long predates your arrival here in town. This has been on the table, what to do with the building and the repairs for many, many years. And so it's good to have these articles come up and really give people a good idea of what the different options are.
Right.
Now, I know that another sensitive issue, and it's going to be on the warrant, is medical marijuana. What's up with that?
Actually, it's the recreational marijuana. And that is a moratorium on recreational marijuana until June of 2018. The rationale behind that is the state law that initially was going to allow recreational marijuana is under a lot of change. There's up to 50 articles on the legislature now to look at modifying the recreational marijuana law, and that if we were to try some other form of maybe a prohibition or some other zoning change now, there's a good chance it might not be applicable when the state finishes changing the state laws.
Mm-hmm.
So a moratorium will freeze everything in place, presumably give the town a chance to see what the state is then doing, and then to craft a bylaw that meets what the town wants to do.
Now, what would the length of the moratorium be? Is there any way of knowing that right now, or does it all depend on what happens?
No,
with
the moratorium is to the end of June of 2018, so a little over a year from now.
Right.
But the state is supposed to have a resolution on all their articles this summer, and that would give the town, the fall and the winter to prepare a bylaw that meets the town's needs that could be enacted at the next annual town meeting in May, ahead of the moratorium expiring.
Sure. And then, of course, as well as those kind of hot button issues, there is of course the ever constant issue of the budget and all the financials, and I know that you've been getting really deeply familiarized with those as well. Anything there that people should really be looking for?
Well, it's sort of standard budget issues. It's also unique every year. The town has a little over $11 million operating budget. We've managed to maintain an increase of less than 2% on the operating side. We are experiencing larger increases from the two school systems, which we have to find ways to address that. Some of the other towns in the region are questioning and possibly, voting not to fund the school budget. So this is something we have to figure out, is how to, work this into the budget. There's also almost $1 million in capital requests this year, including the 1835 building. And we're looking at ways of funding these. We did go back and look into unspent warrant articles from previous town meetings. We found articles going back to 2005, and we're able to recapture from previously appropriated funds $151,000 this year.
Very good.
So that'll be money that's one of the warrant articles that will transfer back into, the general fund, or actually transfer into the capital account.
Now, I know with the school budget, this is going to be a tough one this year as well, and I think that, of course, with the towns that are involved, I think really everybody's asking questions about this and questioning it and kind of saying, enough is enough. I think we're hearing that.
Well, any budget item that increases faster than your revenue increases becomes a concern and is potentially not sustainable.
Right.
And at some point, you have to get the two in check.
Exactly.
And it'll be up to the voters to decide whether they want to support any one of the budget items as well as the school budget.
Sure. Well, you've jumped right in with both feet, and boy, what a way to start a job.
It's been a great experience.
Yes.
There's never a dull moment here, and truly the people in Sterling have been a pleasure to work with.
Wonderful. Well, once again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again in future.
Great, anytime.
Thank
I'm on
you,
over.
Ross.
Thank you.
The Wachusett Music Series will be presenting Ellis Paul on April 29th at the Harvard UU Church. For more information or tickets, go to www.wachusettmusic.net. The Neshoba Community Partnership for Children will be presenting their monthly parenting series on May 10th at the Florence Sawyer School. The topic will be Engaging Risk and will start at 6:30 p.m. For more information, call 978-779-2821, extension 2041. I'm Rebecca Powers, and that's what's happening.